Welcome to Her Remarkable History. Remember, to support our channel, please subscribe. The horrific oubliette of the Tower of London. Inside the Tower of London during the Tudor period, there was a great deal of suffering and execution. The tower became a site where two of Henry VIII's wives lost their heads on Tower Green, but there were many other dark and disturbing secrets hidden within the walls of one of history's most brutal prisons. One horrific dungeon found in a number of castles around Britain and Europe was the Oubliette, a tiny underground cell or chamber where prisoners were thrown into and forgotten. Inside the Oubliette, prisoners were forced to sit in cramped conditions and in the darkness with no food or water, just waiting for death to take them. They also had to compete with human waste, rats and other unpleasantries thrown into the cell. But the Tower of London itself had an oubliette which today has been lost to time, but it was a place where it is alleged that even Guy Fawkes, the infamous gunpowder plotter, was tortured inside. Known as Little Ease, it was an incredibly tiny prison cell found inside the basement of the White Tower, the oldest part of the fortress. In 1534, a yeoman warder, or beefeater, became one of the first prisoners inside Little Ease. John Board had been caught helping a lady named Alice Tankerville to escape the tower after he fell in love with the woman, and he was meant to guard and imprison her instead. John Board was seen as a disgrace within the Beefeaters, and he was even racked for the information about how he managed to help her escape. But after his brutal racking, he was then thrown into Little Ease. This was a tiny chamber or cell which was 1.2 square metres wide, and the name of it means not much comfort. During the Tudor period, Little Ease was used as a place to hold prisoners, and it was so small that it would force a prisoner into one position for 24 hours a day. It was so small that a prisoner could not stand, sit down, or even lie down, as it was also not wide enough, and was designed to cause maximum discomfort and pain, driving a prisoner mad. It was horrendous for someone inside the cell, and was psychological torture, being locked in a confined space all day for days on end. Someone would wish that their ordeal would be over, and it would force a criminal to confess. It was used alongside with other methods such as the rack, so a prisoner would be left to contemplate their pains, aches and suffering whilst inside there. The reputation of Little Ease was quickly travelling across the Tudor landscape, and it was considered a place where traitors and murderers should be kept, and where the worst of the worst would be kept inside of. It was during the Tudor and Stuart times that the Tower of London became an infamous prison in which many of the most important figures inside a society found themselves imprisoned. As the tower got larger in its fortifications, the monarchs decided to use it as more of a prison than a royal residence, and began to see huge uptakes in amounts of people being imprisoned there, especially during the times of religious turbulence, as it was important for the lieutenant of the tower to create a reputation of great fear from the tower. Now John Board's ordeal inside of Little Ease led him to confessing his love for Alice Tankerville, and he told the guards how he managed to escape the tower with her. He was then executed for his crimes and was hanged in chains from the top of one of the towers of the fortification. But today the location of Little Ease is lost to time, and it's considered to be in the dungeon of the White Tower, which today has recently been converted into being a gift shop. Previously, you could not get to this part of the tower, but it was believed that the 1.2 metre squared cell was built into a wall, or into the thickness of the wall, and was carved out. With this, it could still exist somewhere in the tower that is off limits to visitors. But there were other accounts of prisoners being thrown into the oubliette and then the dungeon. On the 3rd of May 1555, a criminal named Stephen Happs was imprisoned inside of Little Ease for a period of 3 days. He was accused of abstinency and lewd behaviour nearby, and was held inside Little Ease, as it was deemed further investigations for his crimes were needed, and it was hoped the cell would lead to him confessing to his crimes. During the reign of Elizabeth I, on the 10th of January 1591, Richard Topcliffe was involved in the interrogation of George Beasley, a priest. He was interrogated with his friend Robert Humberson, It was said in the Tower's records that, "If you shall see good cause by their obstinate refusal to declare the truth of such things as shall be laid to their charge in Her Majesty's behalf, then shall you by authority hereof commit them to the prison called Little Ease, or to such other ordinary place of punishment as hath been accustomed to be used in those cases, and to certify proceedings from time to time." With this, Little Ease was used as a threat to get the men to reveal all they knew, presumably about Catholic worship within the lands of Elizabeth I. But the most famous prisoner held inside of Little Ease was Guy Fawkes, who during the reign of King James I was involved in the gunpowder plot. Fawkes was the most high-profile plotter and was the one caught with the gunpowder under the Houses of Parliament. He initially maintained his innocence and refused to give his name before he was tortured on the rack. Over a period of days, Fawkes was broken by the rack and the brutality of the guards who needed to extract more information from him. He was thrown inside of Little Ease following his racking, when he would have been a broken man, and it was this that would have contributed to his revelations. He would have been shackled hand and foot whilst inside the tiny cell and left to consider his crimes. The use of Little Ease may have been what finally broke him. It was said that a year after the torture of Fawkes, Little Ease was disused and not used again. It was a horrifically brutal form of torture, being locked in a tiny cell for a long period of time. The pain of having to crouch constantly also would have led to severe aches and pains, but today there is a wall inside the tower where the screams of the men held in Little Ease were heard. The prison has been lost to time, and it's a shame that it can't be seen today. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.